¿Qué tal? Buenas noches. ¿Habéis disfrutado, verdad? They enjoyed.
Oh. Gracias.
So, bueno, yo voy a intentar hacer un poquito en inglés para agilizar, pero si me pierdo ya le he pedido permiso a Ryan para cambiar al español en cualquier momento. So we're very happy, very honored to have you here in the Spanish Film Academy. It's been a pleasure to watch your magnificent movie. And we're really looking forward to hearing your thoughts about it. And I know they have a lot of questions. I have a few questions myself, so let's talk about a little bit about the film. As far as I know, there is something in the film that recalls of your family, of part of your family, of your grandfather, or your uncle. So I'd like you to explain a little bit how such a personal journey, cómo esta parte tan personal de la película en realidad atraviesa, cómo utilizas una película de género para hablar de algo tan personal realmente.
No, it's a great question. So just to contextualize it a bit, my matrilineal side of my family comes from the American South. Even though I was born and raised in California, and my mom was born and raised in California, so I'm second generation California on my mom's side. But her mother moved there from Texas when she was 12. She's 97 years old now. And she married a man from Mississippi who was my grandfather. He died before I was born, but he built a house that was like the home base for my family. He got the job that kind of like set my family up to move from lower class to middle class, and had a profound impact on the community, on my family, even though I didn't know him. My grandmother's little sister married another man from Mississippi who moved to Oakland in his 20s, and that was my Uncle James. And for most of my life, he was the eldest male member of my family, and we were very close. I would go over his house and spend time with him, and he always had a blues record on, all the time, and I came to associate blues music with just like being old. I grew up listening to hip hop and R&B, late 80s, early 90s, 2000s. But my uncle always was listening to Delta blues music, kind of from the era that's covered in the film. When I got older and left home to play college football and eventually go to film school, start making movies, my uncle got sick, and he ended up passing away while I was away in Los Angeles working on the film Creed. And I felt really guilty. I wasn't there for him when he died, and I would find myself in moments of contemplation of him. I would play blues records, and what eventually happened was I fell in love with the music. I started to study it and started to wonder about my uncle's life as a young man when he fell in love with this music and started to learn how the music influenced global popular culture. And one day when I was listening to a blues record, I got the idea for what would eventually become this movie. At the same time, me personally as an audience member, I always loved horror cinema. I loved horror fiction and literature. I was kind of obsessed with it, and through happenstance, I ended up making social realist drama in Fruitvale and sports franchise movie and comic book franchise movies. I looked up. And after 12 years of working in the industry, I felt like I didn't have a chance to show the global audience like kind of who I was, as a creative. So it was something that I was thinking a lot about coming out of the Writers Guild strikes and the SAG strikes, and a lot of contemplation on the existential threat that exists to cinema going. Much was being made about it, and I said, hey, I might not ever get a chance to make another movie again. I got to do something that's truly me. So the me part of it is the genre, you know, and then the love for my uncle is the setting and the themes, if that makes sense. So I kind of married those two things together.
Sorry.
Are y'all catching me? Are we good? Okay, cool. I'm good now. Yeah, I got it here now. Yeah.
Because I read in an interview that you said that your film could be described like a genre fluid film.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
It switches from a solid melodrama to almost a John Carpenter's movie.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of romantic elements as
Yeah.
well. But most importantly, it's a musical as well. As you said,
Absolutely.
maybe music is what really because music has a magical role in this film.
Yes.
So we could say that music is what drew you to this particular story.
Absolutely. And in some ways, it's fueled by jealousy. You know, like I'm because I'm not a musician. You know, and I'm close with a lot of musicians. I always feel jealous of them. You know how they can just pick up an instrument and then the art just comes out. You know, and for me, I gotta get a crew of 300 to 1,000 people. You know, like and wait 2, 3 years, 4 years to finally have a piece of finished art that can engage with the audience. So in some ways, the movie was fueled by jealousy. You know what I mean? But also. When you see a genius artist, specifically with music, because it's so immaterial, but kind of with anything, it does feel like alchemy. It does feel like magic, and sometimes it feels like it's like a greater power moving through them, so to speak. And so I was excited to kind of approach this film from that. From that standpoint, and it's interesting. It's actually interesting being here in Spain for the first time because a lot of magical realism, comes out of the Americas, like where I'm from, like Mexico, Central America, South America, and I know that it's a lot of it has its basis here as well. You know what I mean? It was a great opportunity for me. It's funny because Guillermo del Toro, he has Frankenstein out right now. But coming here makes me think about man, how do y'all say it in Spanish? We call it Pan's Labyrinth, but it's Laberinto del Fauno. Okay, yeah. I remember that movie being so brilliant because it was a fairy tale, but I also learned about the Spanish Civil War, in a way that really stuck with me. And so I was thinking about thinking a lot about how Latin American magical realism can like really hold a lot. You know what I mean? So in this way, it's kind of this movie is in conversation with that, if that makes sense.
So we could say maybe like Pan's Labyrinth, your film balances from historical drama to a genre film. And there's one thing that this was the third time I saw the film, and what really shocked me the first time I watched it, it was like the balance of being audience-oriented mainstream movie, but at the same time it feels like an author film. It's really, really personal. So I'd like to know how you have in mind the audience while writing such a personal piece.
Yeah. This is like my funniest thing to talk about. My favorite thing to talk about, I should say. So how I see it is like do you guys know who Andre 3000 is? Okay. So while I was working on the film, my wife and I, we went to go see him perform. Like his flute album, that crazy ass flute album he put out. And the thing he said when he first came on stage is he said, me and my band, we just have our antennas up really high, and whatever hits us, you know, we're gonna play it in the moment. And I really resonated with that concept. You know, for me, like I like to have my antenna partially outside of my body, but also like very deep down inside of my body as well. And what I mean by that is, you know, I will put my love for watching movies in a theater up there with anybody. You know what I mean? It's literally been one of my favorite things to do since as long as I can remember. And on this film, like all films, but on this one especially, I was trying to stay in tune with like the younger version of myself that used to love to sit in the movies and just have my mind blown. You know, I love to sit in the movies and learn something new, you know, that I could use in life. Love sitting in the movies and reacting to things, but also hearing other people react, you know, differently, you know, so I tried to keep that antenna down, you know, in there, and then as the crew progressed and we picked up and we brought on our collaborators, our actors, my department heads, to keep it up as well. So I'm in tune with how they're reacting to certain things and see if I can catch anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the whole time I'm advocating for the audience. You know, I'm saying, like, you know, what would I want to see? What would really make me, you know, make me jump out of my seat? What would make me what would make me want to walk out of the theater when the movie's over and walk right back in? You know what I mean? And watch it again. And I think that we approach it like with the communal sense, because when you're on a film set, you know, if you're on a good one, everybody got there because they love movies. Yeah. You know, because at some point, some movie they watched in a theater, usually sometimes on VHS or DVD, a movie knocked them on their ass. You know, and it triggered the kernel of an obsession that made them want to dedicate their life to giving other people that feeling, right? You know, so if their antennas are engaged too, you know, you're gonna get, you know, really cool ideas. You know, so you know, and then it's my job to just make sure everybody's calibrated to the right channel. You know what I'm saying?
Because the film feels very playful at moments.
Yeah,
it looks like you had a lot of fun.
We did. we worked really hard. Yeah. You know, it's like some days were crazy. It was alligators in 120-degree temperatures in the swamp. Sometimes my wife, you know, had scars from bug bites from being in the trees. But we you know, most of the time we had massive smiles on our face because it felt so special.
Yeah, and the film is filled with iconic moments, but I guess for me and maybe for all of us, I don't know, for me at least, there's something unforgettable about the moment when he begins to sing and you mix all times come across through the music, and I was just watching, trying to find out where started the digital composition and how amount of the shot was really set up with the actors coming in and out of frame. So could you talk us a little bit more about that particular scene, please?
The mechanics of it?
The one when she begins to play guitar,
yeah,
and then people from other periods, other cultures begin to interact with him in the same.
Did you want me to talk about like how we put it off technically? Yeah. So we shot that scene with our IMAX film cameras, 15 perfect IMAX film cameras. We shot 24 frames per second. And the reason that we didn't go slow motion is just because when you go slow motion with those cameras, you get like 30 seconds. Yeah. You know, we would have had to break that up into like eight segments at least. So we made the decision it was going to be 24 frames per second. And we shot it on a Steadicam, which is, you know, we had to have a really athletic Steadicam operator. They tend to be athletes, as you know. But this one was especially good. It was a Haitian American young man named Rennie who used to play American football like I did. So we got along really well. And we we had everybody there, all hands on deck. Every department head was there. We had an incredible choreographer named Akaman Jones. Most notably works with Usher, but he he was in our orbit since the Panther films, and he worked with local casting to cast these incredibly talented dancers that had to have these specific expertise on because all of the dances you see are regional, and yeah, we it's very little VFX involved until we get to the tail end of the shot. But there is some work that we did to join the shots up, because at 24 frames per second we get about 70 seconds of photography. So and what we're doing is like a combination of really old tricks, like where actors are kind of hiding behind behind other people and they coming out on certain timing. We had the playback there, but it was hooked up to Pro Tools so that Ludwig could adjust the song, if we had trouble getting around to a certain place. The first segment we had the Hollywood, the DJ table, that was hidden by our department, and then we had some grips that were dressed in costume. That as soon as the camera turned its back, they lifted it, got it into place. The DJ jumped up, and then they went back and kind of hid out as if they were patrons, So we got that around, and then we cut and took Delroy's piano out, so it's a CG hookup, a CG corner of the piano that comes up so that we could walk through it to get to the drummer who's up on stage, and then we spin around, and there's no VFX for a while. We go in to the actors in the kitchen. Lee Jung Lee, the actress that plays Grace, takes us out and around. We seeing more and more dancers getting populated, and then the Monkey King and the Chinese water dancer, they kind of just are, hiding themselves out of view of the camera, and then because they're dancers, they can kind of run to a spot and then freeze as if they've been there the whole time, So it was really fun, and then we did a basic pillar wipe. That comes around while she's spinning. We come around a pillar that's always been there, and that was a great place for us to join and hook up the shot. And then from there, it's just packed with people. Ruth Carter got this incredible red leotard for our ballerina, who kind of comes off camera. And it's funny because in the take we use, she actually knocks the shit out of the camera. There's a camera bump in there, and I had conversations with my editor, Michael Shaver, because we liked all of the performances in this one with the camera bump. And we were like, yo, are we gonna go for it? We're gonna put a camera bump in this big old movie, you know what I mean? And we ended up going for it, and Ludwig actually helped it so that it's on beat. So it actually like makes you lean in a little bit more. It makes it feel more real. But Ruth put her in the red because she kind of triggers, her entry in the frame kind of triggers the embers that are coming down. And those embers are full of CG. But then when we tilt up, that's an actual photographic hookup because we actually burn the roof. And then we go up into a full CG aurora borealis, like the sky above. And then we come down and hook into actual photography that we did outside at night, in that same swamp where the juke joint is. Real pyro. All that pyro is real. And then we're on a crane with about 8 grips, pushing it. And then as it goes back, the trio of vampires, they're standing outside of the dolly track. And then right as it jumps by, they jump in, and hold still, and then we reveal them. So that was kind of how we did it.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, it's your, if I'm not mistaken, it's your 5th film with Michael B. Jordan.
With me directing, and with me writing and directing, it's our 5th time. But I produced 2 movies for him. One that he acted in, one that he acted and directed in. So there goes 7. And then he did a cameo for us in a movie we did called Space Jam. And so that's 8. So yeah, it's been quite a few.
So yeah. This is the 5th and the 6th time at the same time. You work with.
That's correct. Yeah.
and why the decision? It was all the time. It was in your mind that they had to be twins, or it was the technical challenge of playing with the technology to achieve something special? I don't know, because I've read something about the Halo rig in terms that it's something that really was conditioning the performance of Michael at some point. No, it was difficult to adapt. So that technical difficulty was something that you wanted to, I don't know, try yourself, or it was for you important that it was twins. It wasn't enough if they were brothers and it was two different actors playing the roles.
It was always twins for me, you know, and it was always gonna be Mike. And I think it was just, I've always been fascinated with identical twins. I have a phobia of doppelgangers, crazy enough. But I'm cool with like identical twins, you know what I mean? But doppelgangers terrify me to the point of passing out. But you know, I looked at the movie as like a study in like dichotomies and trios. But the dichotomy of the blues and the church was kind of how the blues started and how it was contextualized. You know, that's kind of how the blues and then later on rock and roll was called the devil's music. Yeah. You know, because it was something where there was a lot of crossover between the patrons, right? Like you know, these sharecroppers would look forward to the weekend. They would go out Saturday night, you know, drink, listen to blues music, go home, change, and then go to church, you know, in the morning. And what you learn is, you know, these pastors, they were getting upset that the tithing money wasn't there. They were spending the money at the juke joint, you know. So they kind of condemned the culture. You know, it became this thing where that's the devil's music. You shouldn't be out there doing these things. You're going against God. That kind of, and so you learn that when you study the Delta blues, that a lot of the best blues musicians came out of the church. You know, that were church goers, that were children of preachers. It was really quite fascinating for me. And so starting there, looking at the blues in the church as the initial twins, you know, it helped me to kind of tap into that obsession that I had, you know, and base these characters around that.
And there is one thing that the first time I heard about the movie, prior to watching it, someone talked to me about Dusk Till Dawn, like an example of a film that in the middle makes a twist and is a different film. I think in this occasion, in your film, is you take it beyond that. Was for you a concern at some point that horror movie fans would find that the first hour of the film, it wasn't a genre movie, and in the other way around, people who are reluctant to horror movies would not embrace the second part of the movie?
Dusk Till Dawn. So the question was
if you were worried about horror film lovers not having the patience enough to get to the point an hour in the movie, and in the other side, if people who are initially reluctant to watch horror movies would not go to a movie because they know there is a supernatural element.
Yeah, nah, for sure. So a really interesting anecdote is that the scene that Remick falls out of the sky and runs up to the farmhouse. When I initially wrote the script, that was the first scene of the movie. You know, the screenplay is still like that. You know, so they used to start the movie off, and that was how we shot it. And then when we got into the editorial process, we realized that it just made more sense for that to come later, in terms of the flow of the film. But we did want to start the movie off with the messaging to the audience that this would be a scary movie. So that was how we ended up with the book ending, you know, showing Sammy coming home first. That was the development in post production, just to keep that messaging up top, you know, that this movie would have, you know, some signature horror elements in it, you know. and you know, we were always banking on, you know, the horror audience sticking with us, you know, because what we found was that the performances and the characters, you know, were interesting enough to keep folks engaged until Remick showed up, you know. But we did need that scare up top. We in terms of people who didn't want to see, you know, like people who were turned off by horror movies. We knew that we had to go there. You know, the movie would get violent and crazy. You know, but what I always was trying to do with the screenplay was to buttress it, you know, with moments of tenderness, love, romance, comedy. You know what I mean? All of the parts of life that can balance out the spicy parts. You know what I mean? It was definitely something that we were aware of, and that was how we came up with the idea for that surreal montage scene in the middle. You know, I realized that the movie needed that. The movie needed a victory moment for all of these doomed characters. You know, so to speak. And yeah, like you never know what the audience is gonna do, but it was my hope that that the movie would kind of work for everybody. You know what I mean? It's not balls to the wall. Not balls to the wall. Sorry. It's not in the end vampire violence. You know what I mean? There's kissing and hand holding and coming of age. You know, and really like silly jokes. You know, like happening that I think would be enough to keep somebody engaged no matter where they are. And for the people who showed up to get scared, you know, I think we had enough for them, you know, for them too. You know, we were always trying to deliver something that was balanced and like a satisfying feeling for audiences, you know. And for me, I was thankful for my experience with IP films, because there's a balance you have to have with that too. You know, the first time I made a Rocky movie, you know, I was very adamant that the movie worked for people who didn't like boxing. You know what I mean? Because that's the beauty of those Rocky films, is that you can not like boxing and like Rocky. You know, the first Rocky, you know, most of that movie is these two awkward people kind of courting each other. You know what I'm saying? The boxing happens very, very, very minimal. But when it's there, it's there. You know, it goes there. You know, but by that time, you hope that everybody is so engaged with the characters. You know, in the same with Black Panther. Like if I was to make a movie that only comic book fans could enjoy, you know, it wouldn't do the business that would justify the budget. You know what I mean? Yeah. It had to be enough there for the comic book fans, but also something there for your general movie fan. You know, like your general person who loves going to the movies, you know, for date night or likes to lose himself in the cinema, but maybe they're not familiar with what happens in the Marvel 616 universe, and they don't know what vibranium is. You know, it has to work for all of those people. Yeah. So I brought that kind of mentality to this story as well.
Okay. Bueno, vamos a abrir. We're going to open to the audience. I have a friend who texted me a question for you.
Okay.
He's too shy to he's a fellow filmmaker. He's too shy to ask himself.
Is he here?
He's there, yeah. Jorge Arenillas, yeah. But he texted me and if you have the chance, please ask him.
Okay.
And it's
Mucho gusto.
You want to go ahead, Jorge? Hazla tú.
Hello, Ryan. Thank you for coming. Do you have translation?
I do.
Okay, I'll speak in Spanish, okay?
Okay.
Tengo una pregunta. Tengo entendido que esta película se rodó simultáneamente en dos formatos distintos, en IMAX y en 2.76, que son dos formatos opuestos prácticamente. Quería saber cómo es el proceso mental de componer para esos dos formatos tan opuestos y las dificultades añadidas que tiene. Gracias.
It's a brilliant question. So y'all all got that? I've never done it simultaneous translation. It's really cool. Yeah, interpreting, I guess it is, huh?
She's great.
Yeah. But so my producer, my wife, Zinzi Coogler, she's a sign language interpreter.
Oh.
So she did that for like a decade while working part time with me on films before I got her full time. So such a beautiful art form, man. I'm just kind of like fascinated. But that's also an amazing question. So so we shot the film in 2 different formats, and it wasn't simultaneous. So we always carried both packages, but we would make decisions about which package we were shooting a scene for. And so there was the Ultra Panavision 70 format, which is the basically the widest aspect ratio, and then we shooting that juxtaposed with the 15-part IMAX film camera, which is essentially 1:4:3:1. It's the tallest cinematic ratio. And I'm obsessed with the concept of dynamic range, and I became obsessed with it in music, actually. But it's something that's very talked about in photography and cinematography. Making sure that your blacks are as black as they can be, your hot spots are as bright as they can be. But in music, I like when a song can get quiet and get loud, you know what I mean, and at the same points, and I always find that to trigger like that goosebumps, you know what I mean, like that hair standing up on the back of your neck, when your subconscious is trying to stay balanced when you get put on your toes like that, and so I find blues music to be like a music that has like a really high dynamic range conceptually, like it sounds really simple, there's usually one instrument, one voice, and it's oftentimes you can think of it as like simple-minded music, But when you really get into it, you learn that these guitar licks that they play are like incredibly complex and mathematical, and the poetry is like crazy dense, triple and quadruple entendres. So it's got all of this concept of dynamic range built into it. So when we had the opportunity to shoot with large format photography, and these camera packages were available, we tested them. It was the first thing we did with my cinematographer, Autumn Arkapaw. And we went out and shot, and we knew that the Delta region of the United States has a very flat horizon. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a trademark to the place. So we went out in LA to a place called, it was either Palmdale or Lancaster. I always forget which one, but it has a flat horizon. We took a young man out there and dressed him in very stark clothes, and we filmed him in both the Ultra Panavision format and in the IMAX format. We got prints made, went to IMAX headquarters, which is in a building, the David Keeley screening room. It's kind of this size, but imagine the screen is just like like a skyscraper. And we played it back, and we juxtaposed it. And as soon as we saw a cut from that thin stripe to that massive square, felt that feeling, in the back of my neck, and I saw it's got to be this, it's got to be this contrast, because that's what the movie is about, and we kind of took that and then broke it down, and we discussed which scenes we wanted in that 1:4:3 format, which scenes we wanted in the wide format. And it developed a new cinematic tool for us, and you can transition between with the animated move, which causes, it's literally like, it's so much fun. I'm geeking out now, but like if we found ourselves, if we transition with the animated move, what would happen is your body naturally kind of does this, like literally, like we would see ourselves kind of lean forward, and when we transition with a hard cut wide, your body kind of does this. You know what I mean? So we thought about like when do we want audiences leaning in? When do we want them kind of jumping back? And we went through the script with that in mind, and we were able to execute.
But you shot with 2 cameras, or just one lens and 2 different magazines?
We shot. We carried 2 regular speed IMAX cameras and 1 high speed IMAX camera, and 2 regular speed Ultra Panavision 70 cameras and 1 high speed. So we carried a total of six camera bodies at all times. And we would shoot never with more than 2 cameras, usually just 1 at a time. But we would never shoot. We would never mix formats at the same time, if that makes sense. So we were either shooting a scene in Ultra Panavision 70, or we were shooting a scene in IMAX. Am I boring you guys with this? Okay. So here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that so there was another variable in this. And I had to get a lot of advice from Chris Nolan on this, because he was the only guy who had used the actual camera bodies. He used a different lens package on Oppenheimer and Dunkirk, but he used the same camera bodies. And here's where it gets tricky, because it's not always just a creative decision. So the IMAX camera is not a sync sound camera. Okay, they've recently made sync sound cameras that Chris is using on the Odyssey. I've seen them; they look fucking crazy. But what we had was not a sync sound camera. It sounds like a weed whacker in a trash can. Yeah. It's crazy loud, right? But they weigh about 80 pounds once they all kitted up, and they're very ergonomic, so they can be handheld or they can be on a steady cam. You know, it's still very, very heavy. But they're not sync sound cameras, meaning that if I shoot a close-up of you, it's gonna be loud as shit. And if you're trying to convincingly have dialogue with me, you have to train yourself to not shout over it, and not because I'll see your physical strain, you know, in the ADR. So it was a conversation we had to have with our actors about it, right? And they also have to commit to being either wild lines or ADR. The other cameras, the Ultra Panavision 70 cameras, the 2 that are not high speed, that are regular speed, these are sync sound cameras. However, it's still ripping, you know, these very large sized film reels through, and it's very loud. So they have to put all of this soundproofing inside of it. So those cameras weigh 100 pounds once they kit it up, which is too heavy to go on a shoulder, much too heavy to be on a steady cam. So these cameras have to be either on a tripod, on the ground, or on a crane, or on some type of crane system. Okay, no handheld with these cameras, no steady cam with these cameras. The flip side, I'm not boring y'all yet? Okay, all right. So the flip side is there's a high-speed camera. Remember I told you about the third body? Yeah. A high-speed Ultra Panavision 70 camera, which can shoot 24 frames per second, but it can also shoot up to 72 frames per second, okay? So this one actually has no soundproofing inside of it, so it's lighter. So once it's kitted up, it weighs about the same as the IMAX camera. So that can be put on a shoulder handheld, and it can be put on a steady cam. However, it's loud as shit still. So that will commit you to ADR, okay? So that was the other factor. It wasn't just creative. It was like, hey, you know, can we be on a steady cam here? Can we be on a crane? Do we want to do this handheld? And are the actors comfortable with ADR? Are they comfortable with talking at a regular volume while this massive thing is going off? Yeah. So that was kind of how we had to factor in for our planning.
Bueno, me comentan que that we're really tight with time, I think.
Oh, they're gonna kick us out. I'm sorry about having to go to the restroom.
No. They said maybe your twin brother came in after the restroom. Someone said
still just one of them. Yeah.
One more. I can choose.
I can't choose either. Yeah. Anybody's birthday coming up? Your birthday? I can't do this. I mean, blue suit.
Yeah, you. Yes. That's you. Yes, you. He's really excited. I know. Okay.
Hola. Bueno, mi nombre es Moja y bueno, primero quería compartir que cuando se estrenó la película de Black Panther, la primera en 2018, hubo un grupo de personas negras que fuimos a verlo a los cines en en Princesa, y fue muy simbólico porque fue un lugar en el que 30 años antes las personas negras pues era muy peligroso ir en aquellos tiempos. Entonces quería compartir esa pequeña historia, y a raíz de eso quería preguntarte, en tu experiencia como director, tus películas siempre tienen un impacto muy fuerte a nivel racial en comunidades, también fuera de los Estados Unidos, como aquí en España. ¿Cómo te sientes cuando sabes que tu trabajo como director tiene también ese impacto en comunidades negras fuera de Estados Unidos?
I feel like I have the best job in the world. You know, I feel very grateful to have this job. It wasn't like a likely path for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm from California, but I'm from a long way from LA. I didn't have any family that was in the business or anything like that. So it feels like a stroke of like incredible luck that I find myself here. And the other piece of it that's so interesting is the act of me actually getting here, like the racial makeup of the people who helped me you know, find my way, standing here in Madrid for the first time, talking to you, hearing this incredible information. It looks like the United Nations. You know what I mean? Like every single type of person that could exist on this planet had a hand in me getting here to this place, where I could tell stories, you know, through the language of cinema, very often about people that look like me, but about the human condition. You know what I mean? And for me, it's an honor that I take very seriously. You know, it means the world to hear that, bro. You know, and it makes me feel like like all of the grind and the decisions have been worth it. You know what I mean? Each time somebody says that they're moved by the film, and also like, you know, I'm a humanist, bro. You know what I'm saying? At heart, you know, like you know, we have all of these constructs and all of these things that we use to divide ourselves. You know, and the thing that makes that so sad is you know, they usually lies. You know what I mean? It's usually a lie somewhere that somebody's telling or investing in. You know, and for me, it's always great to use cinematic language to examine the lie. You know, but also it's also great to just give people a good time. You know what I mean? Like it's also another form of resistance to that lie. You know, if I can put a movie out that's about black people in Mississippi in 1932, and you know, Warner Brothers ships it to Spain, you guys watch it and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like and y'all just have a good time at the movies, man. That's fucking awesome. You know what I mean? There's so much cool shit to do in Madrid. Y'all could be anywhere. You know what I mean? But y'all here watching a movie, you know, that I was based on my relationship with my uncle. You know, so it's very full circle to hear that, man. And it means a lot. And I can't wait to continue to watch, you know, movies that you guys create, and hopefully I can be moved in the same way. Did you have a quick one? Did we hear from any women? Yeah, boom. Let's do rapid fire. Go before they kick us off. Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah. By the way, this is the second time we're seeing you today because you were in our college today. You were in Thai. We're also Thai students, so this is the second time we're seeing you today. I just wanted to know how present were you in the editing room? And obviously, I know it's a process that you and also the editor have to do.
Yeah.
And what was the arrangement between you and him on deciding whether or not a scene or something was gonna be in the movie or not?
Yeah. So our arrangement, I worked with an editor named Michael Shaver, who I've been working with since 2010. He's cut every one of my feature films that have been released. And this was the first time he worked on his own. You know, he usually has a co-editor. So it was a big deal for him, big deal for both of us. And I'm really proud of his work. I'm near like quite a bit, but I also, we have a rule where when he needs space, you know, he'll tell me. You know what I mean? Like, so he don't have his boss over his shoulder while he trying to get it done. We worked in Los Angeles, you know, so I live in the Bay Area, so I was commuting down, you know, and yeah, like it's pretty like it's all conversational, man. Like he's a very emotional person, you know. I think all picture editors are, you know. And we would try things, and if he was feeling something in his heart that was in disagreement with me, we would hash it out. You know, my whole thing with my department heads is I always want to hire people that know more about what they do than I do, and then I want to trust them and empower them, if that makes sense. And that'll save me from my worst instincts. You know what I'm saying? But I always speak up if I'm feeling something, and thankfully we got a great working relationship. Yeah.
Bueno, ahora sí que me comentan que ya no tenemos. We have to leave the.
They're kicking us out.
Yeah,
Fire
we're kicking
marshal.
us out. Yeah.
Okay. All good. Thank you guys.